There's a unique kind of freedom that only comes from a full tank of gas, a long stretch of empty road, and a destination that's hours away. It's a modern-day pilgrimage, a chance to escape, to think, to feel the world shrink down to just you, your machine, and the endless ribbon of asphalt ahead. We chase this feeling. We crave the adventure. But the open road has a secret. For every story of discovery and beautiful sunsets, there's another story whispered in the dark. A story that begins with a wrong turn, a strange car in the rearview mirror, or a town that shouldn't exist. These aren't campfire tales. These are the moments when the freedom of the road curdles into the terror of isolation, when you realize just how alone you are, and that you are not the only one out there. Today, we're going to explore 3 disturbing, true stories from people who took a road trip and drove straight into a nightmare. So, buckle up. We're about to peel back the curtain on the darkness that waits on the edge of the highway. Our first story comes from a man named Liam, who was making a cross-country move for college back in the early 2000s. He was young, excited for a new chapter, and driving a beat-up but reliable old Honda packed to the ceiling with everything he owned. To save money on hotels, he decided to drive straight through the night across the vast, empty expanse of the Nevada desert. For the first few hours after sunset, it was peaceful. The sky was a brilliant canopy of stars you just don't see in the city. He had a stack of CDs and a bag of gas station snacks. It was a perfect, solitary journey. Around 2 a.m., somewhere on a long, featureless stretch of US Route 50, often called the loneliest road in America, he noticed a pair of headlights appear in his rearview mirror. This wasn't unusual. Another night owl, he figured. But the car stayed back, maintaining a perfect, unnerving distance for almost half an hour. It was a large, older vehicle, maybe a truck or an old sedan from the 70s. But it was too dark to make out any details beyond its 2 round, pale yellow headlights. Then, it started. The truck behind him flashed its high beams. Once, Liam, thinking it was a signal to let him know his own lights were off or something was wrong, checked his dashboard. Everything was fine. He tapped his brakes lightly. A sort of "what's up" signal back to them. There was no response. A few minutes later, it happened again. A single, deliberate flash of the high beams. This is where the unease started to creep in. This wasn't an accident. It felt intentional. Liam sped up a little, hoping to put some distance between them. The truck matched his speed instantly. He slowed down. The truck slowed down, too, keeping that exact same distance. Flash. The high beams again. Liam's heart started to pound. He was in the middle of nowhere. No towns, no gas stations, not even another car for miles in either direction. It was just him and this phantom vehicle. He decided to test a theory. He maintained his speed but turned his own headlights off for a split second, then back on. The truck responded immediately. It flashed its high beams twice. It was a language, a call and response. A game he didn't know the rules to. A cold dread washed over him. This was not a friendly traveler. This was a predator playing with its food. For the next hour, the terrifying game continued. He'd try to outrun them, but the truck's engine would roar to life, easily keeping pace. He'd slow to a crawl, and it would patiently crawl behind him. Every few minutes, a flash of the lights, reminding him it was still there. These kinds of scary road trip encounters are the ones that stick with you. The ones that feel ripped from a horror movie. But for Liam, this was terrifyingly real. He saw a sign for a rest stop, 15 miles ahead. It was his only hope. He floored it. The truck behind him roared, its engine a deep, guttural sound that vibrated through Liam's car. It was gaining on him now, the game of cat and mouse apparently over. The yellow headlights grew larger and larger in his mirror, filling his entire rear window. He could feel the vibrations of its powerful engine. Just as he saw the exit ramp for the rest stop, the truck swerved violently into the oncoming lane, pulled up right beside him, and for the first time, he could see inside. It was a man, his face obscured by a baseball cap and the deep shadows of the cabin. But he was staring right at Liam, and he was smiling. A wide, predatory grin. Liam yanked his wheel, swerving onto the exit ramp, his tires screeching. He didn't dare look back. He flew into the brightly lit rest area, where a single semi-truck was parked, its driver asleep. He parked as close to the semi as he could, killed his engine, and ducked down in his seat, his body shaking uncontrollably. The old truck slowed at the entrance of the rest stop, its headlights sweeping across the parking lot. It paused for what felt like an eternity, its engine idling menacingly. Then, with one final, mocking flash of its high beams, it pulled back onto the highway and disappeared into the darkness. Liam stayed hidden in his car until the sun came up. He never saw the truck again. He finished his drive to college, but that night left a permanent scar. He never found out who that was, or what they wanted. He only knew that for a few hours on a lonely road, he was someone's entertainment. And he was lucky the game ended when it did. What Liam experienced was a tangible threat. A person, a vehicle, a clear and present danger. But sometimes, the horror on the road isn't something you can see. It's something you hear. It's a whisper on the wind, a ghost in the machine. Our next story is about just that. A chilling event that blurs the line between coincidence and the supernatural. This happened to a married couple, David and Sarah, who were celebrating their 10th anniversary with a trip through the misty, winding roads of the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. They were intentionally taking the scenic route, avoiding major highways, wanting to get lost in the beauty of the ancient landscape. They were driving in the late afternoon. A thick, soupy fog had rolled in, clinging to the trees and reducing visibility to just a few car lengths ahead. Their cell phones had lost signal hours ago. They were listening to the radio, but the only station they could pick up was a faint, crackling in broadcast. It was playing old-timey music from the 1940s, which actually fit the mysterious, timeless atmosphere of the fog-shrouded mountains. Between songs, a radio host with a smooth, old-fashioned voice came on. And that was a classic for a classic day, he said, his voice warbling slightly with static. For all you lovers out there traveling on this misty Tuesday. David and Sarah smiled at each other. It was Tuesday. They were the lovers. A fun coincidence. The announcer continued. We've got a silver sedan making its way up Old Crow Pass right now. Take it easy around that next hairpin turn, folks. It's a doozy. David, who was driving, slowed down. They were in a silver sedan. And according to the old, weathered sign they had just passed, this road was, in fact, called Old Crow Pass. David felt a prickle of unease. Sarah laughed it off. Lots of silver cars in the world, honey. They rounded the hairpin turn carefully. The road was clear. The music came back on the radio. But the feeling of being watched, of being known, lingered. A few miles later, the announcer's voice cut back in, a little clearer this time. Hope you folks in the silver sedan are enjoying the view. Sarah, I bet you're wishing David had remembered to pack that thermos of coffee right about now. The car went silent. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. They had been joking about the forgotten thermos not 10 minutes earlier. There was no one around. No houses. No cars. Nothing but fog and trees. How could he know her name? How could he know about the coffee? Panic set in. David grabbed the radio dial, trying to change the station, but there was nothing but static on every other frequency. When he turned back to the original station, the announcer was talking again. No, don't touch that dial. We're all friends here. His voice was still smooth, but now it held a chilling, almost playful menace. You two are almost there. Just be ready. After the old stone bridge, you need to make a choice. The road ahead has seen so much sorrow. A terrible mistake was made there not so long ago. A mistake you're about to repeat. David and Sarah were now frantic. This wasn't a joke. It wasn't a prank. It felt like a premonition. A warning from a ghost on the airwaves. Up ahead, through the fog, They could see the silhouette of an old stone bridge. Their hearts were hammering in their chests. This was a textbook example of unexplained highway phenomena, a situation with no rational answer. As soon as they crossed the bridge, the announcer's voice came on one last time, filled with an urgent, desperate sadness. "This is it. Stop the car. Please, for the love of God, stop the car." Instinct took over. David slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a halt in the middle of the road. In front of them, the fog was so thick it was like a solid white wall. David turned off the radio. The silence was deafening. They sat there, trembling, for a full minute before David slowly opened his door and stepped out. He walked a few feet in front of the car, and then he just stopped. Sarah got out and joined him. Right where the road should have been, there was nothing. A massive section of the pavement had been completely washed away in a landslide, leaving a sheer, 100-foot drop into the rocky gorge below. If they hadn't stopped, they would have driven straight into the abyss. They stood on the edge of the void, shaking. When they finally got back in the car and turned the radio back on, the M station was gone. There was only static. They had to reverse for miles before they found a place to turn around. They never found the station again, and no record of it exists. They were saved by a voice from nowhere, a broadcast that knew their names, their car, and their future. They were saved by a ghost or an angel on the radio. We've had a human predator and a paranormal protector, but our final story is perhaps the most disturbing, because it's about a threat that is both. It's about a place that shouldn't be, filled with people who are all too real. This is one of those true road trip horror stories that makes you question the very map of the world you think you know. It comes from a woman named Chloe, a pharmaceutical rep whose job required her to drive through the rural heartlands of the Midwest. One evening, driving through a particularly sparse area of western Nebraska, the main highway was closed due to a chemical spill. A police officer directed all traffic onto a long, winding detour down a county road she had never heard of. Her GPS immediately lost signal. Recalculating, it repeated before going silent. As the sun began to set, Chloe realized her gas tank was running dangerously low. She was getting anxious. The road was old and poorly maintained, and she hadn't seen another car for nearly an hour. Just when true panic began to set in, she crested a small hill and saw lights twinkling in the valley below. A town. Relief washed over her. As she drove closer, she saw a welcome sign, hand-painted on old wood. It read, "Welcome to Havenwood, a good place to rest." The town was odd. It looked like it had been plucked right out of the 1950s. The buildings were pristine. The storefronts had old-fashioned lettering, and classic cars were parked along the main street. It was quaint, but also eerily perfect. Too perfect. She pulled into the town's single gas station. An old man in clean overalls came out, smiling a wide, friendly, but somehow vacant smile. "Fill her up?" he asked, his eyes not quite meeting hers. Chloe nodded, and as he filled her tank, she looked around. People were milling about on the sidewalks, ladies in dresses, men in hats. They all smiled and waved at her, but it felt rehearsed, staged. She went inside to pay. The woman behind the counter had the same empty smile. Passing through, "Are you, dear?" she asked. "Yes, just trying to get back to the interstate," Chloe replied. "Oh, you'll be here a while," the woman said, her smile never faltering. "The detour is a long one. Most folks end up staying the night. We have a lovely motel. You should stay. We're having our annual Founders Day picnic tomorrow. You wouldn't want to miss it." There was an insistence in her voice that made Chloe's skin crawl, an unspoken rule that she was expected to stay. She politely declined, paid for her gas in cash, and walked quickly back to her car. As she was about to get in, she saw a bulletin board outside the station. Pinned to it were dozens of faded, curling flyers. They were missing person posters. Her blood ran cold. She recognized the faces, a young backpacker she'd read about who vanished in Colorado, A family that went missing on a vacation out west. Dozens of faces, all from different states, different years. All of them last seen on a road trip. And on the bottom of each poster, in the same neat handwriting, were 2 words: found. Welcomed home. Chloe felt a primal fear grip her. She wasn't in a town. She was in a trap. She jumped in her car, started the engine, and peeled out of the gas station. In her rearview mirror, she saw the friendly smiles of the townspeople drop. Their faces became blank, emotionless masks. The gas station attendant stood perfectly still, watching her go. Several other townsfolk slowly, deliberately, began to walk into the middle of the street, as if to form a barricade. Chloe didn't hesitate. She swerved around them and floored it, not looking back until Havenwood was just a speck of light in her mirror, a light that seemed to vanish altogether as she crested the next hill. A few miles later, her GPS blinked back to life. She was, according to the map, in the middle of an empty field, miles away from any road. But she was driving on pavement. She followed the GPS's frantic instructions to get back to a recognized route, and, an hour later, she finally merged back onto the main interstate. The road was open. There was no sign of a chemical spill, no sign of a detour. When she got to her hotel, she frantically searched online. Havenwood, Nebraska. There was no such place. There never had been. The area her GPS said she was in was nothing but unpopulated farmland. It was a town that existed only for lost travelers. A place where people check in, but they never check out. She had been invited to stay, and she was one of the few who had ever declined the offer and lived to tell the tale. The open road promises adventure, but it offers no guarantees of safety. It's a world between worlds, a place of profound solitude where the normal rules sometimes don't apply. Liam Stocker, David and Sarah's ghostly warning, Chloe's town that wasn't there. These stories remind us that monsters are real, that miracles can happen, and that some places are best left undiscovered. They remind us to stay vigilant, to trust our instincts, and to be grateful for every journey that ends safely at home. The next time you're on a long drive late at night, and you see a pair of headlights lingering behind you, or hear a strange voice on the radio, or feel the urge to take a shortcut down a dark, unknown road, remember these stories. Thank you for watching. If you have your own chilling story from the road, share it in the comments below. We'd love to read them. And if you enjoyed these unsettling tales and want more content that explores the darkness on the edge of our world, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Stay safe out there.